We're delighted to speak to our next guest. That would be Tad Boyle, the head coach of the CU men's basketball team. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, good to be with you guys.
Well, you finally get a moment to sort of catch your breath after the beginning of this season has been pretty compressed. And now you had the win on Pepperdine on Sunday, and now you get a couple of days off here before you take on Miami, the number 15 team in the country. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask, because you've been at Colorado for a long time. Prior to that, University of Northern Colorado. You had a big game against Colorado State recently. This feeling of big-time college basketball that is happening in the state of Colorado, have you experienced it before, and how does it help you build the program?
Well, there's been pockets of times in my 14 years at Colorado, and even my 4 more at Northern Colorado, where we've had some good teams in the state. Air Force had some good teams there. They had a good run for a while.
Right.
It's been a while since DU had something. Northern Colorado, we had it going, and they went to the tournament the year after I left. So, and Colorado State, had some really good teams under Larry Eustachy, and now obviously Nico's done a good job. So, we've certainly seen pockets in years where it's been stronger than others. But this year, I think when you look at Colorado State and you look at ourselves, two, in my opinion, NCAA tournament teams, there's a lot of time between now and then for us to have to prove that. But no, it was in terms of both of us being as strong as we are and quality of players that we have, I think this is as good as it's ever been. But there's been some good times, good years in the past too.
Coach, to pick up on Shawn's point a little bit, certainly during the second half of the CSU game last week, I thought that was about as high a level of college basketball as I've seen around here, maybe going back 15, 20 years. You might know better than I would if I'm exaggerating that a bit, but I just thought the quality of play, it had the feeling of 2 heavyweight teams going back and forth, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it would have been 40 minutes if we wouldn't have stunk it up the first 20. So,
yeah.
But it was you're right. The last half, we made it a game. We finally, woke up a little bit. But yeah, it was a high level game on both sides. I mean, look, we've got some really, really talented players in Buffs uniforms. But Isaiah Stevens is he a special player.
Oh,
and I knew that. I've known that since he's been there. He's getting better and better every year. But this year and the way he played that night was off the charts. But we had some really. KJ Simpson had 30 points on 13 shots that night. I mean, that in itself is a pretty darn good performance. Obviously, Cody Williams, played well. So it's going to be a fun year. I think if there are college basketball fans in this state, and they don't make it a point to get at the Fort Collins or over to Boulder to watch these 2 teams, they're missing something.
Well, you got Miami, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, coming in on Sunday. And, there's a Bronco game on, but go up to Boulder. You have time to get back and watch the Broncos once the game ends.
Yeah, well, it won't be in Boulder on Sundays. We'll be in Brooklyn, New York.
But I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But
okay.
the timing conflicts.
Yeah.
Yes, you can watch it on the tube. I want to ask you about your freshmen. And actually, it was my partner who made this observation that with freshmen, whether they be 5 stars or 4 stars, 3 stars, whatever, the improvement is sometimes fairly gradual, and it might be week to week, month to month. Once conference plays start, they get their feet wet a little bit. And my partner said about a week ago, Cody Williams seems to improve half to half.
Yeah.
And I guess the Colorado State game was a good example of that. There was a major improvement in the second half where he scored all his points.
No doubt. And game to game, he's definitely getting his feet wet. And, it's going to be one of those things. And I go back to when we had Derek White up here. We only had him for a year, right?
Yeah.
And he was at the end of his college career. Well, Cody's just at the beginning of his.
Right.
My guess is we'll probably only have Cody for a year. But so again, it just goes back to the point I made earlier. Like, you're going to be watching this kid 3, 4, 5 years from now in the NBA have a major, major success, much like Derek is right now. And and you could have had the chance to see him, up front and in personal, when he was 18 years old. So I remember when I was a young assistant at the University of Oregon, the Pac-10 back then was having their NCAA golf, or the Pac-10 championships, the golf tournament in Eugene, Oregon, and there was a guy named Tiger Woods that was playing, and I never went out and saw him play. And I could have been, throwing a rock to hit him, to watching him play around the golf, and I didn't do it, and I always regret that, And I think people are going to have the same feelings. They don't come watch a kid like Cody Williams play.
Right.
This was a terrific recruiting class coming into this season. Of course, 3 players in the ESPN Top 150 for the first time, and of course, you talked about Cody Williams. But it feels as if the program is ready to take another leap. Even if you do have a player like Cody Williams for 1 year, that success still breeds success. And so, I think one of the questions when you're talking about running a program year in and year out, as you have, with the turnover being not only frequent but also inconsistent. How do you continue to build a culture up in Boulder that continues to grow and continues to succeed?
Well, I think that the short answer to that is you recruit great kids from great families with high character, and we have made a conscious decision to try as best we can. And again, we signed a kid out of the transfer portal last spring, but we are really trying to build it with high school kids.
Right.
Develop them, have them grow. Now, Alec Burks was here for 2 years. Spencer Dinwiddie and Andre Roberson were here for 3 years. Cody might be here for 1. But whatever the case may be, we've had a lot of 4-year players who have had great success. So you build it with high school kids who own the program by the time they're juniors and seniors. Like KJ Simpson's a junior for us this year. And this, he's our point guard. And he has ownership in this program. He's got some sweat equity in it. And when you're recruiting out of the transfer portal or junior college kids year in and year out, it's really difficult to create that culture, create that continuity, even though we know year to year there's going to be attrition. We know that, but, you get that core group of guys. You mentioned, this year's recruiting class, we just signed 4 kids in November, high school kids that are really good players themselves. So you keep stacking those classes on top of themselves. And you develop them, and we got a great strength and conditioning coach. We treat our kids really well. Boulder's a great place to go to school and spend 3, 4, 5 years of your life. So a lot of positives going on up here that we've tried to capitalize on.
You mentioned the portal, and the big catch for you was obviously Eddie Lampkin and some of us who follow the Big 12 and certain programs, the Big 12, very familiar with Eddie Lampkin. I've seen him play a lot at 6'11", 265. And that, he's not playing heavy minutes for you, but he's one of those 3 seniors in your starting lineup. And I know you like that. Yes, De Silva and Hadley have been around the program, but even Hadley came from Northeastern, right? And
he came from Northeastern via Indian Hills. He was a junior college kid.
Right. So. And so you've been able to meld these people in, but you have that kind of experience. You have Luke O'Brien, who's a senior, coming off your bench. Julian Hammond III, a junior, coming off your bench. So, this seems like a perfect confluence of circumstances to give you a chance maybe to have your best team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best offensive team we've had since probably our first year here, when we had Alec Burks and Corey Higgins and that group who could really score. I think we averaged almost 84 points a game that year over the season.
That's what you're averaging this year at 83.8 so far.
Yeah, exactly. So far, and if we can, Pac-12 play, we'll see if we can continue that pace. We want to play fast. We want, obviously, taking advantage of the altitude when we play at home. We want to put a lot of points on the board. So this team has a chance, I think, to be as good offensively as that team had. The difference is I think we can be a better defensive team, because that's the one thing I couldn't get that team to do is to buy in on that end of the floor. So these guys have bought in. Now, we don't always do it. We've had halves where we've been really, really good defensively, and other halves where we haven't. But that's a work in progress that I'm excited about. This, the one thing I like about our team, guys, is right now, here it is, we just turned the page for November, December. is the ceiling for this team is much higher than where we're playing right now.
Yeah. Oh.
And I don't think you can say that about a lot of teams.
Right.
There's some teams, but we're still trying to find ourselves. And Eddie Lampkin coming off back surgery, he's still not in great game shape yet.
Right.
It's hard for him to play extended minutes because he's not able to physically. So, he's a work in progress. But I like this team. I like the parts of it. Now we just got to, blend it together and play together. And if we do that, the sky's the limit.
For a work in progress, Eddie Lampkin leading the team in rebounds at 7.6 per game is not a disaster.
Not
We're joined by
23 and a half minutes.
Yeah, the University of Colorado Buffaloes head men's basketball coach Tad Boyle. And Coach, you're going into your 9th game of the season against Miami, but it'll be the 3rd game in one of these showcases. Obviously, you had 2 at the Sunshine Slam in Florida. You'll have this one at the NABC showcase in Brooklyn. And does that make it more difficult to get your guys used to road games, especially when it's sort of surrounded by the pomp and the circumstances of these invitationals?
Not so much, no. I mean, the neutral court games like we had in Florida and the one we'll have in Brooklyn, St. John's, I think, plays after us, so there'll be some people in the stands, I'm sure, to watch them. I think we'll have a good crowd, but certainly the Barclays Center won't be packed. We've got a good contingent of alumni in the East Coast, in the New York and New Jersey areas, so hopefully we'll have a good turnout. But it gives you a chance, guys, to play a really quality opponent, obviously a top 20 team on a neutral floor, and that there's nothing like that, because that's what's going to happen if we're fortunate enough to play in the NCAA tournament. You're going to play. You're not going to play on somebody's home floor. We're not going to go to an environment like we did in Fort Collins the other night. Now we will when we play in the Pac-12. But we won't, in postseason play, which is what you try to prepare your team for, in the non-conference play with what are you going to see come March. And the games in Florida, the game in Brooklyn is going to help prepare our guys for that.
Is there anything, and I know the conference season doesn't start for a few weeks, but is there anything that's odd or awkward about playing in a league that after this year won't exist?
Well, Sandy, that's a great question. I'll be able to better answer that, when the season's over with. I can tell you just the only experience that I have so far is, going to Media Day back in October. We held it in Las Vegas, and which is where our tournament's going to be. And it was like going to your own funeral. It was the worst experience I've ever had. In my life as a coach, and again, not because of Pac-12, I don't think the staff, the people that are working and putting on that media day or putting on the Pac-12 tournament,
right
here come March, they're doing the best they can. Their staff members, and I feel for them because, they're polishing up their resumes because they're not going to have a job come the spring, and so there's a lot of sadness that goes with our league dissolving, not just the fact that, hey, we're not going to be part of the Pac-12, but, people are losing their jobs. And anytime that happens, when they've done nothing to do it, anything to do with that is kind of sad. So we'll just make the most of it and see how it goes.
Coach, you have a couple of games left before the conference schedule starts, and I guess I don't want to single out any game on there, but the calendar turns to 2024. Of course, you'll start with that matchup against now number 1 ranked Arizona. We'll see what happens by the time you get there. But looking at the way you grow this team, you talk with Cody Williams' growth, Lampkin getting more healthy. We've seen what we can out of KJ Simpson. When you look at your team today, and you look at them in almost exactly 30 days when you get ready to take on Arizona, what do you want to see when you get from point A to point B?
Well, I want to see Eddie Lampkin in game shape, tip-top shape. That's number one, because they've got some interior players that we're gonna need him to match up with. Omar Ballo being one of them. They're starting center. We don't have anybody on our roster other than Eddie that can, bang with that kid and neutralize him down low. So we need that, number one. The second thing is I want our guys to understand that for us to be successful, they have to rely on each other. We've got a lot of individual talent. We mentioned Cody Williams, KJ Simpson, Tristan Da Silva, Eddie Lampkin, Javon Hadley, Luke O'Brien, Julian Ham. Like a lot of individually really talented, gifted players. But for us to go down and beat a team like Arizona on their home floor, which, by the way, we have yet to do in our 13 years in the Pac-12, we're going to need to play together and rely on each other, because we're not going to be able to go down there and just do it with individual talent. We're going to have to do it with collective talent that plays together, plays with toughness, plays with heart and grit, because you have to go beat Arizona if you're gonna beat them in their own building. They're not going to beat themselves.
Right. Coach, this was the second longest break you get all year, the break between Pepperdine and Miami. We truly appreciate you spending a little bit of time during that break with us. Thank you so much. I hope we have the opportunity to do this again as this season rolls along. Best of luck out in Brooklyn and the rest of the season.
Okay, guys. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. CU men's basketball coach Tad Boyle joining us. And
Boulder, Brooklyn, starts with
a B. Yeah. It's such a fascinating, as you mentioned, 14 years there. And it's so fascinating to see where this program has come over that span. And here we are coming into this year, as you rightly pointed out, and as Coach Boyle said, this is the first year in which CU, for any coach, has ever had the five-star recruit like Cody Williams. The first time they've ever had three of at least the consensus, whoever's ranking them, top 150 high school players in the country.
Right.
Everything is going this way, and it really isn't. I want to go back to the first thing that he said when I asked him about for the state of Colorado. You have Colorado State now ranked higher than they've ever been. They just beat Colorado in an outstanding game. Of course, he pointed out if they had played a full 40, maybe it'd be different, but you live and you learn, and I think that was actually the point that Coach Boyle was trying to make out of that. Hey,
you're down 15 at the half, you lose by 5.
Yeah, you played well, but if you would have
played well,
but if you could have played the whole game, you might have gotten this, and that's where coaching comes in too. Is coaches there are some coaches that'll tell you that a little easier to coach after a loss than a win at times. So there's that, but
they smacked Pepperdine.
Yes, they did.
Pepperdine's not nearly
that was
as good a team.
Not a compelling contest in the 91-66 victory. Miami's will be quite.
But Miami will be different.
But it feels as if this is really for both of these universities, and what's great about it is that they can, in an odd roundabout way. This is what happens. They help each other by being successful at the same time, because more people look at the state of Colorado. More recruits look at the state of Colorado than they did before. And now, I have 2 schools to visit that are interesting and compelling. Okay, I'm going to go there. And quite frankly, this is how rivalries work. And I know this rivalry in basketball has been pretty one-sided on the CU's side for a while, but right now, CSU holds that. It levels everybody up.
Well, to me,
it's a great
Nico
time to be a college basketball
and Tad
fan in
Boyle, 2
Colorado.
of the top 30 coaches, and maybe 2 of the top 20, but certainly 2 of the top 30 coaches in the country. And we're talking about how many Division I basketball teams? Over 300, right?
Right.
So if you're in the top 20, top 30, you're in the top 10%.
10%. And I think that's an easy call.
That's, I think, a pretty fair assessment of what these coaches have accomplished. And now they have talent, experienced talent to work with, and I know Nico really works the portal probably in a way that's different from the manner in which Tad treats the portal, but you've got to use all the tools at your disposal, and I think CU now, given the fact that they got Cody Williams and they're bringing in 3 guys for next year, and by the way,
we mentioned Lampkin's a transfer guy, and he's leading the team in rebounding.
Transfer guy, and Lampkin can play.
Yeah,
now, I understand he's coming off the back injury, and he isn't the player that I remember, at least not at the moment, that I remember during his time at TC.
He's playing pretty well even right now.
But he's very good.
Yeah.
He's very good. I've seen him against Kansas a bunch of times, and he's very good. I think, yes, Cody Williams will likely leave at the end of 1 year, but I don't quite always understand the reason that every 5-star feels he has to leave.